Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Blake the Book Eater here, and today I'm going to tell you about all the books I'm really excited to try and read in 2022. So this is going to be a very long and rambly video, so I'm going to try to keep things quick and brief, but I have a lot of books. If you hadn't noticed, and a lot of them I have not read, and so in 2022 it's going to be my personal goal to try and read as many of these books as I can and not buy as many new ones. I know saying that I won't buy any books is just never gonna happen, but I'm gonna try to limit myself a lot to just reading all the stuff that I have, because I have even more books off camera that you guys can't see that are just littering my room. I live in a library, and it's awesome, but also overwhelming, because I will look at my shelf and have a little panic attack because I'm like, there is no way I'll be able to read all these books. So that's what I'm gonna do in 2022, is try to read all the books. I think the first big goal, like overarching goal, that I want to accomplish this year is to finish The Wheel of Time. I am currently halfway through the series. There are 14 books in the main series and a prequel, so 15 in total. I am 7 books in. So this is book 8, and then, you know, I have the rest over there. If you weren't aware, The Wheel of Time is an epic fantasy series created by Robert Jordan. It was recently adapted into an Amazon show, which I will be having a video review of the first season coming out pretty soon, because I have things to say. But I really want to finish the saga. It is something that I've become very invested in. I love the characters, I love this world, and I really want to see how it ends. I read, I think, the first 5 very quickly and didn't take a break, and I think that burned me out on the series for a while. And what I've learned is that for this series I'm gonna have to read one book at a time and then take a little break in between. Maybe if I feel ambitious and really motivated, I'll read 2 back to back. But this is something that I'm really gonna have to parse it out and not just binge, because if I binge it, I will go into a coma. But yes, my goal is by the end of the year to just knock these out. Another one of my big goals this year is I want to finish listening to the First Law trilogy. I'm currently on the first part of the last book in the trilogy, so I'm really excited to listen to it and find out how it ends. But again, I'm only really listening when I'm doing long car trips or visiting my parents or things like that, so I'm not listening to it very frequently, which is why it took me almost a year to listen to the first 2, but I want to be a little bit more intentional about listening to my audiobooks this year, so I want to finish that, and then I want to be able to get to the Age of Madness trilogy and all of his other little fiction in the First Law world, because I do really love the characters, I really love the voice, and I think after I finish listening to the First Law trilogy, I'm going to move to print for the rest of Joe Abercrombie series, just because I feel like I would just devour them, because even listening, I'll just sit and listen for 45 minutes at least, and it'll feel like nothing. So I'm sure reading will go even faster. Another one of the series that I really want to get to at some point, maybe just the first book this year, we'll see, is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, this is a series that was really recommended to me by my friends Red and Monica, who both really love it. And I do love historical fiction, and I do love supernatural mysteries and that kind of stuff, and that kind of combo seems like this series would be really, really perfect for me. So I feel like when I'm in the mood for a paranormal historical fiction this year, I will probably pick these up. Also, I've heard that the writing is really, really good, so that just makes me excited to dive into this. Something else that I am super, super excited to read, and I'll actually be reading in a week or 2, is Lost Gods by Bram. I finally read some Bram last year, and one of his books actually ended up on my favorites of the year's list. So this book, which I've actually had the longest out of any of his books, I'm very, very excited to get to, and this is actually the Vintage Books and Wine pick for the month of January. So if you'd like to catch our live show, it's going to be at the end of the month on my channel. And this is about a man who is kind of trapped in purgatory and is trying to get back to his family or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really delved too much into what the book is about because I want to go in a little bit blind. But Brahm is also an artist, and so the art he has like interspersed throughout this is just gorgeous and kind of creepy, and I'm really excited. A throwback to the beginning of my channel on YouTube, the series that made me want to join YouTube, the BookTube community in the first place, is the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. I actually never read Dark Age, and I know he's in the process of working on the third and final book in this trilogy, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. But I feel like to really get into this book, I'm gonna have to do a reread of the original trilogy and then Iron Gold. The reason I think I held off on Dark Age for so long is because Iron Gold was almost a little bit of a disappointment after how much I loved the original trilogy, so I want to see if going back and rereading Iron Gold I'll be able to appreciate it more. And then I've heard nothing but amazing things about Dark Age, so that really makes me want to pick it up at some point this year. And speaking of sci-fi, there's another sci-fi series that I started and never finished, and that is the Wayfarers series by Becky Chambers. The fourth and final book was just released last year, and the first book, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, is one of my favorite books that I've ever read, and somehow I just never got around to reading the rest of them. So I'm gonna obviously do a reread of the first book and then just read the other books, because what I remember is or Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, it just felt like a warm hug of a book, and I think this year that's the kind of energy that I want out of my reading, and I want more of her writing, honestly, because the writing was my favorite part of that book, and I just want to experience more of that. So I actually I got the UK covers because I thought they were prettier, which they are. Look, they're gorgeous. So I gave actually the US ones, which I had copies of as well, to one of my friends. So at some point I want to do a read of them with her, and I might bring her on to get her thoughts as well. So maybe we'll do a joint review or something. But yeah, I want to get to these. Another thing that I am going to be trying to finish this year, this is going to be a year of finishing stuff, is I want to finish the Expanse series. I've read every other book in the series, and the ninth and final book just came out a couple months ago, and I want to read it so badly. Like, I'm in the middle of doing a read-along of the Expanse series right now with Kaz, Katie, and Joel, and so we're going to be reading, I think, one of them maybe every month and a half. It just kind of depends on our schedules, so just stay tuned and I'll let you know. The next book that we'll be reading is the fourth book, and we might be doing the fourth and fifth book. Again, I'm not sure yet, so we'll see. But by the end of the year, I want to have this completed, just because every other book has been a smash hit with me, and I know I'll love this. And there's actually one more entry in this series coming out, and that'll be in the next couple months, and it's going to be a collection of short fiction that ties into the world of The Expanse, as well as an epilogue following the events of the final book. So waiting will actually be better in this case, because then I can just binge it all. But yeah, The Expanse is one of my favorite series of all time. And so yeah, definitely going to get to this. Another book that I'm going to be reading with other people is actually this month I am going to be joining the Cressie Book Club in co-hosting the She Who Became the Sun live show at the end of the month. This is really exciting because this is a book that I've had my eye on for a long time, and this is the push that is going to get me to read the book in the next couple weeks. So I'm very excited to read it and discuss my thoughts with them. So if you would like to join us, make sure to watch along. I don't talk about it much on this channel, but one of my favorite books of all time is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and he just kind of surprise dropped a new not album, it was not an album, a book. He surprise dropped a new book a few months ago called Cloud Cuckoo Land, and no, it's not related to the Lego movie at all. This is actually a novel that kind of follows the format of one of my other favorite books of all time, Cloud Atlas, and it tells different stories over different time periods, but they all kind of are connected. The way that they're all connected in this book is, I believe it's a play. You get like ancient history, modern day, and then like in the far future, and like how these characters are tied together through the telling of this play. And Anthony Doerr's lyrical writing is one of my favorite things that I've ever consumed with my eyeballs. And so I definitely want to read this one. This one is a little bit heavier. Usually with historical novels, they take me a little bit longer to read just because the authors tend to use a lot of flowery language and describe things in very specific detail. So I do want to read this, but it might get pushed towards like maybe the middle or the end of the year. Not sure, but I know that I will be in the mood to finish this at some point. Another one of my favorite books of all time is A God in the Shed, and the sequel, The Song of the Sandman, was finally released, and so I'm going to be doing a reread of this one and diving into this one to see if the sequel can hold up to just as good as the first one is. This is a horror novel about a girl who kind of bonds with this thing, and it lives in her shed. And lots of people die, and it's bloody, and it's creepy. There's this town mystery, and this like ancient evil, and it's weird and bizarre and very, very good. So I'm really excited to see if the sequel can live up to how much I loved the first one. And seeing as the first one ended on a cliffhanger, and then we didn't get this book for like years and years and years, I'm like, I need it. So we'll see. You're like hearing me say my favorite a lot in this video because, again, like I feel like a lot of these series or like things or authors have been just pumping out content, and I've been such a huge fan of some of their stuff, but haven't been able to get around to everything they've done. So 2022 is going to be kind of a catch-up year. And another one of my favorite authors is Jeffrey Cranor. He was one of the co-authors of Welcome to Night Vale, and in this he's co-writing this with Janina Matthewson, and this is a book that is like a dystopian fantasy kind of satire or something. I'm not even really sure. I kind of really want to go into this knowing not a lot. This is You Can Feel It Just Below the Ribs. And like Jeffrey Cranor's just writing style is just one of my favorite things. I love it so much. And so this seems like it would be a quick and fast read, and I definitely will be reading it very soon. All right, I'm going to talk about these two at the same time because they're both kind of the same thing. These are both finale books in their respective duologies, and I loved the first book in both duologies, and I haven't read the sequels yet, but I'm going to. So I'm going to read Our Violet Ends by Chloe Gong and Redempter by Joy Fueko. These are two YA series that I've really loved their first book, and I really am excited to see how they both end. I highly recommend you read the first book of each of these duologies if you haven't already, so maybe you'll get caught up in time by the time I read these. All right, so Never Die by Rob J. Hayes was one of my favorite books of 2019, 2020, I forget exactly when I read it, but it was so freaking good. And in the time since, he's released two other standalone books in that world, Pawn's Gambit and Spirits of Vengeance. These are both books that I really, really want to read because I loved his writing style and the characters and the magic and stuff in the first book, Never Die. The good thing about Never Die is I actually read it in a day. It was very short. I got the Kindle edition and I just blew through it. So I'm definitely going to be rereading this and then hopefully getting back into the rest of the series as well, just because I do love supporting indie authors when I get chances to, because a lot of the time you just don't hear about indie authors or you're not as aware of their works. And so when I find like a good indie author that I really like, I try to search out their books and read and find everything I can about them, just because I feel like sometimes you know, we love traditionally published books and we love those authors, but sometimes we need to give our love to indie authors as well. So if I do find indie authors that I really love, I will give them shout outs on this channel because they deserve your time, attention, and money as well. The next book is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, the first book I read by Stephen Graham Jones, The Only Good Indians, was a very interesting book. It wasn't my favorite, but I really enjoyed his writing style, and I thought the way that he approached horror was very unique. And this is kind of a deconstruction of the Final Girl narrative and slasher movies as a whole, which I'm a huge fan of. So I'm really excited to see how he plays with that format and what he does differently. Again, sometimes a book just doesn't work for me, but like there's enough notable about the writing or the author that makes me want to check out other stuff. So we'll check and see if this works for me, which I really hope it does, because this book sounds like it will be 100% my thing. So I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that it will be. The next book is actually a recommendation from Elias. If you don't know Elias, he's wonderful. And he has been talking about this book nonstop, Summer Suns. And I've actually stayed away from pretty much any synopsis of this book. I know it is queer. I know it's horror and like Southern Gothic, and that's about all I know about it. So I want to go into this book pretty much blind, not knowing much, because I feel like sometimes that's a very fun way to experience a novel. And so yeah, we'll see how this goes. I trust Elias and I trust his taste. So hopefully this book will be tasty. Another book that everyone and their mother has been talking about is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Again, this book, everybody's been talking about it, so what more else is there to say other than that I'm one of the like 2 people on BookTube who has not read this book. So yeah, I will catch up, and you know, I love gay tragedy as much as the next guy, so we'll see how much this book will break my heart. So next I have 3 authors that I want to check out at some point this year. If I only read one of their books, if I read all of their books, if I read none of their books. I mean, I want to read their books, but we'll see. So these 3 authors that I'm really interested in just because the book community has been so behind them, and I have just been like, behind. So the first one is Taylor Jenkins Reid with her books The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising, and then Daisy Jones of the Six, which is not here, but maybe I'll get to that anyways. Her books seem very cool. I would like to read them. Again, Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is one of those authors that has just kind of blown up recently, and her writing style seems very unique and lyrical, and it would be very interesting to get to them. And then I feel ashamed for admitting that I haven't read these, but The Night Circus and the Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I remember I've had this book, I think, since like 2016 and I still haven't read it. So yeah, finally reading these novels at some point this year would be a win, just because I know they're the type of book I know that I would love. So yeah, those 3 authors I would love to check out, and let me know if you're excited for me to pick up any of them or which ones you want me to pick up more than others. So for this next series, it's really interesting because these books, I feel like they can be a nice palate cleanser between some of the other reads that I have planned for this year. That's the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. I read the first novella, and I really loved it. It was short, it was sweet, and I loved how it kind of deconstructed a lot of these fantasy tropes. And there are 5 other ones that I haven't read, and there's another one that's coming soon. So I feel like I can definitely kind of break these up and just intersperse them throughout my year. I love Portal Fantasy as much as the next person. I think they're fun. It's always cool to learn more about different worlds. I think in some of these ones we actually will get to see the Portal worlds that we weren't able to get to in the first novel. So yeah, these books, very cool. The next book that I really want to get to at some point, it's kind of fat, so who knows, but it's Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a novel, a sci-fi novel about humanity exploring the furthest reaches of space and colonizing a planet. But it's dual POV. One half is from the human's perspective, and the other half of the book is from the alien's perspective, and they are alien spiders. So half of you literally just went, nope, I'm never reading this book, and half of you were like, fuck yes, give it to me. So with this book, I am just really excited to just see how he like writes the aliens thinking. Like alien POV is one of my favorite things because authors usually get to play with very interesting structures and different like ways of approaching things that humans wouldn't. And this seems like a book that I would fucking love, so I'm very excited to read this one. The next book is one that I promised my friend that I would read this year at some point, and again, I've had this book for like forever, but I haven't read it, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. It's a fat book about like dragons. What more do I need to say? And my friend loves it. It's one of her favorite books, so I promised her, and so I shall be reading this. The next series may be surprising to pretty much everybody who watched my channel because you've probably assumed that I've read it already, and that is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I know, I'm a Sanderson fanboy and I haven't read the series yet, but in my defense, most of the time I do not read series until they are complete, and he has been writing these so freaking fast that seems completely possible to just wait until they're all out. But it seems like each book is getting more and more kind of like spoilery, and like it feels like it's easier to get spoiled, and it seems like there are things to be spoiled on in this series. And the last thing I want is to get spoiled on a Sanderson series, so I will be reading this series at some point this year, and I will be very excited to do so because it's been a while since I've had new Sanderson content, and I'm very excited to get some. These next two are two young adult series that I have already read, but when I was like way younger, so I don't really have a lot of memory of it. One of them is the Edge Chronicles. I started reading this last year with Gavin, who is a lovely human being, but reads way faster than me, so I fell very behind. So I read the first trilogy, and I want to plan to at least read at least one of the other trilogies. I think in total, the Edge Chronicles, there's like 13 books, so I have about like 10 left. There's just a lot of trilogies, but they're very fast, they're very quick, and the writing style is very easy. I just remember loving the series so much as a kid, and when I read the first three last year, it was just as fun. So I'm really excited to try to finish off this like little piece of my childhood. And another piece of my childhood is the Bartimaeus Sequence by Jonathan Stroud. Now, I remember these covers very differently, and trust me, I looked for them, but they were too expensive, so I got like the newish editions. I'll try to see if I can find a new, like an old cover here, this one. You probably remember that face if you were ever in the library as a kid. I actually read those books, and I loved them. And so I forget what reminded me of them, but like a couple months ago, I was just randomly thinking about them, and I was like, oh my god, that series existed, and nobody talks about it. So I really want to try to reread this series at some point because it brought me so much happiness when I was younger, and I feel like it's a writing style that I feel like I would appreciate even more as an adult. It follows this young magician who summons a djinn named Bartimaeus to help him kind of steal this magical amulet, and things go very awry. And I remember the series being a lot smarter and feeling a lot more adult than I feel like I was allowed to read. Even though I feel like it's not, but like at the time when I was reading, I was like, ooh, it feels sophisticated. Because there was all these footnotes and it was like snarky and funny in a way that like a lot of the young adult books like kind of weren't. Like I feel this book is kind of self-aware, and I really want to dive back in and see if it holds up just as I remembered. Okay, I know this video has been long, but these are the last books. I have been aware of these kind of series for a while, but I haven't really known the best way to get into them, and these are books by Mo Jing Tong Zhu, And there's 3 series here. Heaven's Other Blessings, which has recently become popular, the Scum Villain Self-Saving System, and the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Now, these are all BL series, like Boys Love. They are gay, which is very exciting, and like slow burny, and like there's like magic and ancient history and fantasy, and they all just seem very cool in their own way. It's really interesting that they're releasing like the translations of just the first books in these series, and I'm assuming, I don't know how many there are in each series, maybe 2, maybe 3, I don't know, but you know, this is the one that I've heard the most about because it is the Netflix series Untamed. Well, it's on Netflix. It's like 50 episodes long. And there's also a manga and an anime, but this is like the original like story that everything else is based on. So it'll be really interesting. This is the one I really want to read the most, but I've also heard good things about Heaven's Other Blessings. So these are all series that like I do want to try to dive into at some point. And they're illustrated, they have beautiful art, and in the back there's like a gallery and a glossary of like kind of the characters and stuff. So I feel like these are books that are going to be very easy to just pick up the next volume in the series because I can quickly glance at some of the stuff in the back and like feel like I'm up to date. I don't know, we'll see. Because again, I like to read series when they're finished, so me reading 3 different first books to 3 different series and then trying to remember all of that when the next book comes out, who knows when, that might be a stretch, but you know, I'm super interested in reading more queer Asian content because I feel like I don't see a lot of that, a lot of the kind of YA or like adult queer stuff, I feel like a lot of it is pretty white, and so I'm enjoying seeing a lot of these more diverse queer stories out there, and so I can't get enough of them. And there we go. Those are all the books that I want to get to in 2022. I know it's not going to happen. I know I'm not going to read every single one of these books, but those are all the ones that I really want to get to. So please let me know down below, what are the books that I listed off here that you want me to get to more than the others, because if you guys tell me that you really, really want me to read Sally Rooney, I will go out of my way to make sure I read those books. You know, just an example. Please let me know what you're most excited about. I am very excited that you guys are here and supporting me again, and I love you guys. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to having a really good reading year. Okay, goodbye.